So this has been funny. I've been getting comments recently that I both, 1, don't put out enough book reviews, and 2, I'm clearly not reading these books because the book reviews are coming out too fast. You can't have both. You can't criticize me for both. Just to clarify and put it out there once and for all, I listen to audiobooks and read physical books throughout the day. I work at a desk job, so audiobooks are in my ears for about 6 to 8 hours a day, depending on what's going on at work that day. And then while I'm at the gym, there's another solid hour of audiobook. I just like it. I've been doing this since I was about 12, and it's kind of like my natural state. Which brings me to a book I just recently completed the physical version of, and that is book 3 or 4, depending how you read them, of the Witcher series, A Time of Contempt. I've heaped praise upon praise for the Witcher series. I've said again and again how magnificent it is, how wonderful the characters are done, but my only criticism has been the only character I've really loved has been Geralt, up until this point. If you're hoping I'm suddenly going to turn on the Witcher series, this video's not for you. I now love it even more because this book, for me, Time of Contempt, elevated a lot of the other characters to be near Geralt's level for characterization and development. I am so into this world. I think everything the author has done has been just an incredible choice, a smart choice, and one that you can't really see coming. The relationships manage to be dramatic and feel very real while maintaining a level of believability that just makes them feel so human. Every push and pull between Geralt and Yennefer or Geralt and Ciri just is a very natural progression for the character that we know and understand because this author is good enough at writing character that you actually feel like you get to know characters, which is a level of character writing that's not often seen, but he does it so well that every time things like this happen, you're just like, yeah, that makes sense. Geralt would do that. I'm starting to become confused as to why in the world the Witcher books are not just unanimously across all fantasy held up on the same level as a Lord of the Rings. It's becoming almost confusing because it's one of those books that as soon as I put it down, I'm going, wow, that elevated my understanding of what the fantasy genre's bottom line should be. Because if this guy can consistently write books that are this good, this engaging, I don't see why other fantasy authors can't even at least come close, which is unfair. It's like seeing an amazing athlete do incredibly well, and then you point at another athlete and go, why aren't you that good? But I just have that feeling. Like, it's like watching Superman and you're just not impressed by Captain America anymore. Yeah, you're cool, but he lifted a building. So I'm gonna make a bold statement in terms of overall character for a series. Now that I'm read 4 Witcher books, 3, I don't know, it's been a while. I'm gonna say they are my favorite characterization in the fantasy genre. That does not mean my favorite characters are in the Witcher series, but it means overall how these characters are built and interact with each other is probably the best execution I've seen in the fantasy genre. There's kind of the opposite of what happened with Gunslinger going on here. People keep telling me Gunslinger gets better, push through, it's gonna be wonderful, and the opposite's happening with Witcher. People keep telling me, it goes downhill, the 3rd book's not as good, well, the 4th book's definitely not as good, and I just haven't seen that. In fact, it's getting better. I went from liking to really liking to loving, and now I'm at a point where it's like borderline writing worship. Everything he does, I'm just becoming more hyped about and more interested in. Even the execution of combat, which is fairly minimal and not overly described, which a lot of fantasy authors are guilty of, I like because it's often not about the violence that's happening, it's about the characters' response or engagement with the violence, which is exactly how it should be in this type of established tone and setting. This guy's so not afraid to lose his readers. He doesn't fall into the pit a lot of fantasy authors do of just going overly gory, overly dark, overly just, oh, the fight lasts 10 pages, which For some people, I get they like that, but you gotta understand, you're not really developing or building or moving your plot. It's just simple violence and action sequences, unless you are pretty cleverly weaving them in, which that is even done in Witcher, for the brief violent scenes that do occur. I would say the two standouts for me in this book were Dandelion and Yennefer. Once again, their growth was largely based off their relationship with Geralt, but their own personalities really started to shine through, and that's exactly what I was looking for. Dandelion especially. I love-hate that man. I love-hate him so much. And Yennefer still has a very heavy cloak of mystery, this aura of uncertainty around her and her relationship with Geralt, which is so cleverly done. I can't get over that. You as the reader can never pinhole how much of this relationship is genuine love, which I do believe a lot of it is, and how much of it is manipulation and subversion, which again, I do believe some of it is. Overall, for this book, I'm feeling an incredibly strong fantasy series out of 10. I can't really put it better than that blunt statement. This is just solid. There's certainly nitpicks, as there are with everything. You can nitpick Van Gogh's Starry Night. It's still Starry Night. And I could take the time to go into my nitpicks here, but I don't have many, and none of them are crucial elements to the story. It's just shallow little things, like, why did you have to include that? Why didn't you go a little further here? Personal preference things, which for a review such as I'm doing here is not worth me saying, because it's not worth your time to hear that stuff. You should be here for an overall analysis of what's important for a book, what makes it great. And what I'm telling you here is that the Witcher series, from beginning, including the short stories, that's why I'm on 4, because I started with the short stories, up until now, has been basically flawless on a technical level. It's not quite as imaginative or outside the box as a lot of fantasy books are, and if you like that more wild, crazy power level type fantasy, this is not for you. You might not even like it at all. I'm telling you from just what the world is attempting to do, what the author is trying to craft. I think The Witcher is a dead-on bullseye. And that is a strong criticism I've had for many authors in the past. I don't think they hit their target of what they're trying to build and craft for the reader all the time. I'll even say there's a couple Wheel of Time books that have entire plot lines that miss their target in terms of the message and world shaping, and I've yet to find a single paragraph in Witcher that steps out of what just feels like an incredibly well thought out progression. And I don't want it to come across as if The Witcher is overly simplistic, because it is incredibly imaginative within the constraints it puts on itself. And again, I find that to be a positive. Putting a constraint on a story and then working around it shows creativity and a willingness to follow the rules of a story, which make the stakes higher for the reader overall. Everyone feels like, and maybe excluding Geralt because he is the main character, feels like they could go down at any given time. But there's also no desire by the author here to make Geralt the most powerful in the world. Again, many fantasy authors have this problem. They make their main character the biggest, the baddest, the chosen one, and then you have no fear for that person. Geralt is by no means the biggest and baddest. He's just a very big, very bad.
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
And I like that. And that is smart. It makes it so when he's in a fight, it feels more gritty, you know it's gonna be bloody, and yeah, he'll probably win, but he could get injured, and he does. And the final thing I want to touch on, this is probably the longest I've ever talked after giving an official out of 10 for a story, but I want to talk here because this deserves it. And the final thing I want to talk about, I've seen some people criticize The Witcher for being sexist because yes, a lot of women are interested in the main character and there's lots of sexual content, and I find that to be a ridiculous argument. Just because there is sex does not mean it is a bad thing. This book presents sex and sexuality very much so as in our modern society does. Men call women sluts and things like this, and it's hurtful, shitty things to say. But the author makes that clear, that that is a stupid, shitty thing to say about someone. When people have sex, there's no odd power dynamic, it's all just consenting adults who are attracted to each other. That's how it should be, in my opinion. That's normal. A deep reflection on our own sexuality in the world with a little bit of a looser, more liberal, accepting vibe of it. But yeah, I'm going to officially put, even though I haven't finished it, so I could regret this and it might be a stupid thing to do, but I am officially putting the Witcher series on my OMG required reading by Daniel list of all time.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
So far up there is Wheel of Time, Bobverse, Witcher, Lord of the Rings, and a couple others I can't think of off the top of my head. But that is all I have to say about the Witcher series. I hope you guys enjoyed this more kind of loose video. I wanted to come in this with a little more passion because I feel like my last one was just very analytical. So hope you guys enjoyed the video. Like and subscribe if you have not already. Hit the Patreon if you want to support what I do here. And have a great one, y'all. Peace.